In this tutorial, I'm going to show how to turn basic shapes into cool things like flags or curtains using the cloth modifier. Flags and curtains, when you do architectural illustrations, are some things that you can use in animations to add a little bit of interest. So it's something good to know. And the cloth modifier is a very powerful tool that can be used for a lot of different things. This will be one example. So to create a flag, you can take a rectangle, put a surface modifier on it, convert it to edit poly. You'll see because of the surface it's got some subdivisions already. We want more than that. It's important to have the right amount of subdivisions when you're using the cloth modifier. And then, because it's a flag, we wanted some different forces working on it. So I'll show you that. If you go in and create some forces by going into your space warps here, you can find gravity, and the other one we're going to use is wind. So we want our wind blowing on the flag here. We want gravity working on the flag so that it droops when we turn on the cloth modifier. It's usually good to add some turbulence to this wind. I'll just put in arbitrary numbers because I've already got it set up to the left here, but strength of 15, whatever. That's something you have to mess with until you get it right. The gravity you can just leave at default. Now when you go into here and you put the cloth modifier on our little plane here that's subdivided properly, we can go into cloth forces, and I gotta figure out which ones those are. That would be gravity 2 and wind 3. So if you take these cloth forces and add wind 3, gravity 2, now those two space warps are affecting this cloth modifier. And then the other important thing we want to do, this applies to flags or also to curtains or to a lot of different cloths you might use, but we want this part of the flag to stay stationary because it's connected to the pole. So we turn that into a group by going into the group subobject mode. We'll select those points right there and those points right there as if it's attached to a rope, and we will make that into a group, and then we want to preserve that group, which means that the cloth modifier is not going to affect those vertices. So then we go into our object properties. We tell it that this rectangle is our cloth, and for flag I usually use cotton preset. I'm not going to get into what all these presets are, but cotton usually works sufficient, but you can mess with the other ones to see which one works best for you. For this flag I'm going to use cotton. And there's a couple things to keep in mind for the cloth modifier. Simulate local basically starts your simulation and kind of gives you a starting point. So if you're doing an animation and you don't want your flag to start just pointing straight out, then you can simulate local. And that now the flag, when we start our actual simulation, the flag will start in this position. So you can simulate local, and then simulate puts in the keyframes for this flag, and it's going from 1 to 100 right now because that's what it's set up, but you can do it different time frames. Anyway, we don't need to watch all this. And then you can even add a turbo smooth afterwards to make it look cleaner. So what we got there is that. The flag's blowing pretty heavily. Let's just go over to this one I had set up already. And let's see, do I have the cloth simulated? I don't think so. But I'll just simulate this real quick with the wind how I want it. And you'll notice I have two different winds with different turbulence and kind of facing different directions to give it more of a lifelike look. You simulate this one. This one I messed with a little bit to get it how I wanted. And obviously, depending on what kind of flag and how much wind you want, there can be millions of different ways you do this. But this is how this one turned out. So it'll take a few seconds here, and then we'll have a fully animated flag that you can add to an animation to give it a little more interest. So then when you go back and play your animation, and you see I didn't do the simulate local, so it does start perfectly straight out, but that's okay for this purpose. And there's the flag. Probably a little bit crazy on the wind, but you get the idea.